The night my mother screamed is a night I will never forget, no matter how much time passes. Even now, when I think about it, my chest tightens and my ears almost ring with the echo of her voice. It wasn't a normal scream, not the kind you hear when someone is startled by a loud noise or a bad dream. This scream came from deep inside her, raw and full of terror, the kind that makes your blood run cold before you even know what's wrong. It was late, well past midnight, and our house was quiet in that heavy way it only gets when everyone is asleep. The old wall clock in the living room ticked louder than usual, and the wind outside whispered through the trees, brushing against the windows like curious fingers. I was lying in bed scrolling on my phone, half asleep, when the doorbell rang. One sharp ring, then silence. I froze. Nobody ever came to our house at that hour. Before I could even sit up, the doorbell rang again, longer this time, like whoever was outside was impatient or desperate. I heard my mother's bedroom door open, her soft footsteps moving down the hallway. She called out my name quietly, asking if I was awake. I answered yes, my voice shaky, and she told me to stay in my room while she checked the door. I don't know why, but something about the way she said it made me uneasy. My mother was usually calm, strong, the kind of woman who didn't scare easily. She had raised me mostly on her own and had always been my protector. Seeing even a hint of fear in her voice was unsettling. I slipped out of bed anyway and cracked my door open just enough to see the hallway. The porch light flicked on, casting a pale glow through the frosted glass of the front door. I could see my mother standing there, one hand resting on the doorframe, the other hovering near the lock. She hesitated, taking a deep breath, as if preparing herself for something she didn't want to face. Then she unlocked the door. For a moment, nothing happened. The door opened slowly, creaking like it always did, and I leaned forward, straining to see who was outside. I couldn't make out a face, just a dark shape standing on the porch. Then suddenly my mother screamed. It was loud, piercing, and full of shock. She stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth as if she was trying to hold the scream inside but couldn't. I rushed out of my room, heart pounding, asking her what was wrong, who was there. She didn't answer. She just stood frozen, staring at the open doorway like she had seen a ghost. I followed her gaze, and that's when I felt it too. That strange, sinking feeling in my stomach. The air outside seemed heavier, colder, as if something dark had stepped into our world. I couldn't see the person clearly, but I knew, somehow, that whoever was standing there didn't belong in our lives anymore. Or maybe they never had. My mother finally slammed the door shut and locked it, her hands shaking so badly the keys rattled. She backed away, her eyes wide, her face pale. I had never seen her like that before. Not when money was tight, not when life was hard, not even during the worst moments of our past. This fear was different. Who was that? I asked again, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a second, I thought she was going to cry. Instead, she grabbed my shoulders tightly, almost painfully, and told me to go back to my room. She said it wasn't safe. She said I shouldn't have seen anything. That only made my fear grow. I tried to press her for answers, but she shook her head, her lips trembling. Not now, she said. Please. Just trust me. I went back to my room, but there was no way I was sleeping after that. I sat on my bed, listening to every sound in the house. I heard my mother pacing, the floorboards creaking under her steps. I heard her whispering to herself, words I couldn't quite make out. And every few minutes, I heard her checking the locks again, as if she was afraid someone might come back. My mind raced with questions. Was it someone from her past? Someone she hadn't seen in years? A secret she had tried to bury? I thought about all the stories she had never told me, all the times she went quiet when I asked about my father or our family history. I realized then that there was so much I didn't know about my own life. The rest of the night passed slowly, each minute stretching into an hour. I barely breathed whenever I heard a noise outside, expecting the doorbell to ring again. But it didn't. Morning finally came, bringing pale sunlight and the illusion of safety. My mother acted normal, almost too normal. She made breakfast, asked about my plans for the day, and avoided my eyes. But nothing was normal anymore. The image of her scream was burned into my mind. The fear in her eyes told me that whatever she had seen at the door wasn't just a stranger. It was someone who carried a past full of pain, secrets, and unfinished business. I knew then that this was only the beginning, that the knock on our door had opened something that couldn't be closed again. And as much as my mother wanted to protect me, I could feel it deep inside. The truth was coming, whether she was ready to face it or not. Whoever stood at that door had come back for a reason, and soon we would have no choice but to confront it. After that morning, everything in our house felt slightly off, like a picture hanging crooked on the wall. You could walk past it 100 times, but your eyes would always be drawn back to it. My mother moved through the day with a forced calm that didn't quite reach her eyes. She smiled when she spoke, but her hands kept fidgeting, and she jumped at small sounds that never used to bother her. I tried to act normal too. I went about my routine, did my chores, answered her questions like nothing had happened. But my mind kept drifting back to the front door. I kept imagining it opening again, the porch light revealing that same dark figure. Every time a car slowed down outside or footsteps passed near our gate, my heart skipped. By afternoon, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I asked her if she wanted to talk about what happened. She paused, her back turned to me as she washed dishes. For a long moment, all I heard was running water. Then she said, very quietly, that some things were better left in the past. That answer didn't sit right with me. It felt like a wall being put up between us. We had always been honest with each other, or at least I thought we had. Hearing her shut me out only made my curiosity stronger. I started to wonder how much of my life had been shaped by things she never told me. That evening, the power went out just after sunset. The house fell into darkness, and the silence felt heavy again, just like the night before. My mother lit a few candles and placed them around the living room. Their flickering shadows danced on the walls, making everything look unfamiliar. She kept glancing toward the front door, as if expecting it to move on its own. I noticed then that she had pulled out an old photo album from the cabinet. It was one I had seen before, but never really looked through. She sat on the couch, turning the pages slowly, her fingers lingering on certain photos longer than others. From where I stood, I could see faded pictures of people I didn't recognize. Faces from another time, another life. When she realized I was watching, she closed the album quickly and stood up. She told me to go get some rest, that the day had been long. I wanted to argue, but something in her expression stopped me. It wasn't anger. It was fear mixed with guilt, and it made my chest ache. That night, sleep didn't come easily. My thoughts kept circling the same questions. Who was at the door? Why did my mother react that way? And why did it feel like whatever it was had something to do with me too? Sometime after midnight, I heard her talking on the phone in hushed tones. I couldn't make out much, just fragments of sentences drifting down the hallway. Words like, after all these years, I thought it was over, and he shouldn't have come back. That last part made my stomach drop. He. One word, but it carried so much weight. I pressed my ear closer to the door, my heart pounding. She sounded upset, almost pleading, like she was trying to convince the person on the other end of the line of something. Then her voice hardened. She said she would protect her child at all costs. After that, the call ended. I lay back on my bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. That was the first time I truly understood that this wasn't just about her. Whatever was happening involved me too, whether I liked it or not. The next day, my mother insisted we go out together. She said we needed fresh air, that staying cooped up in the house wasn't good for either of us. We went to the local market, a place we'd been to countless times. Normally, it felt safe and familiar. That day, I felt like eyes were on us everywhere. My mother kept a tight grip on my hand, even though I was old enough not to need it. She scanned faces constantly, her body tense. At one point, I noticed a man standing near a stall across the street, watching us. I couldn't see his face clearly, but something about the way he stood made me uneasy. When I looked again a moment later, he was gone. I didn't tell my mother. I wasn't sure if it was my imagination or something real, but the feeling stayed with me, a cold knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. On the way home, we passed an old building that had been abandoned for years. My mother slowed her steps, her gaze fixed on it. I asked her if she was okay, and she nodded too quickly. She told me she used to know someone who lived near there a long time ago. Before I could ask more, she changed the subject. That night, I decided I couldn't just wait anymore. I went back to the living room after she fell asleep and pulled the photo album from the cabinet. My hands shook as I opened it, half expecting her to appear and stop me. Page after page showed moments from her younger days. Smiling faces, family gatherings, places I had never been. Then I saw it. A photo of my mother standing next to a man. He had his arm around her shoulders, and they both looked happy. Too happy. I had never seen this man before, but something about his eyes made me uncomfortable. On the back of the photo, a name was written in faded ink. I didn't have time to process it. I heard a floorboard creak behind me. I turned around to see my mother standing there, her face filled with shock and sadness. She didn't yell. She didn't take the album away. She just looked at me, like she had been expecting this moment all along. She told me we would talk soon. Not yet, but soon. That there were things I needed to understand, things she had been trying to protect me from. Her voice trembled as she spoke, and I realized how heavy this secret had been for her all these years. As she turned off the light and walked back down the hallway, I stayed where I was, holding the album tightly. Outside, the wind picked up again, rattling the windows softly. Somewhere in the distance, a door slammed shut. And in that moment, I knew the past hadn't just knocked on our door once. It was circling us now, waiting for the right time to come back in. After that night, the house no longer felt like a place of rest. It felt like a waiting room, as if something unseen was sitting with us, counting down time. My mother kept her promise that we would talk soon, but every time I tried to bring it up, something interrupted us. A phone call, a sudden chore, an excuse about being tired. The silence between us grew heavier with each passing day. I started noticing small changes in her habits. She no longer left the house without checking the street first. She began locking doors that she had never bothered with before. At night, I could hear her moving from room to room, checking windows, pulling curtains tighter. Sometimes I woke up and found her sitting on the edge of her bed, fully dressed, like she hadn't slept at all. I wasn't sleeping much either. My dreams were restless, filled with faceless figures and half-heard voices calling my name. I would wake up sweating, my heart racing, and listen carefully for any sound from outside. Every knock, every distant shout made my body tense. The memory of my mother's scream stayed with me, replaying over and over in my mind. At school, I found it hard to focus. My friends noticed I was quieter than usual. When they asked what was wrong, I brushed it off, saying things at home were just stressful. I didn't know how to explain the fear without sounding crazy. How could I tell them that my entire life suddenly felt like it was built on a secret? One afternoon, as I was walking home alone, I felt that same sensation again. That feeling of being watched. I slowed my steps, pretending to check my phone, and glanced at the reflection in a shop window. A man stood across the street, not close enough to be obvious, but not far enough to ignore. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, hands in his pockets. Our eyes met briefly through the glass. My stomach tightened. There was something familiar about him, something that made my skin prickle. Before I could think, I turned the corner and walked faster, my heart pounding in my ears. When I looked back, he was gone. I reached home shaken and told my mother what I had seen. Her face drained of color. She told me it was probably nothing, that I was just on edge. But her voice betrayed her. She hugged me tightly, her arms trembling, and told me not to walk alone anymore. That was when I knew for sure this wasn't my imagination. That evening, she finally sat me down at the kitchen table. The air felt thick, like the calm before a storm. She started by telling me about her younger years, about mistakes she had made, choices she wished she could take back. She said there was a time when she trusted the wrong people, when love had blinded her to danger. She didn't say his name. She didn't need to. I knew she was talking about the man in the photo. She explained that he had once been a big part of her life, someone she believed would always be there. But things changed. Slowly at first, then all at once. She said he had a way of making people feel small, of turning control into something that looked like care. When she realized who he really was, she ran. I asked her why she never told me any of this before. Her eyes filled with tears as she said she wanted to give me a normal life. A life without fear. She thought she had succeeded. Until that knock at the door. Before she could say more, her phone rang. The sound was so loud in the quiet kitchen that we both jumped. She looked at the screen, then at me. I saw panic flash across her face. She didn't answer. She let it ring until it stopped. From that moment on, the tension between us changed. It wasn't just unspoken fear anymore. It was shared. We were both caught in it now. Days passed, and strange things started happening. Objects were moved around the house, just slightly, enough to make us question ourselves. Once, I found the back gate open when I knew I had closed it. Another time, a note was left on the doorstep. It was blank, but the message was clear. Someone had been there. My mother contacted an old friend from her past, someone she trusted. They met quietly, away from the house. When she came back, she looked more worried than before. She wouldn't tell me what they talked about, only that things were more complicated than she hoped. I began to feel torn between fear and anger. Fear of what might happen next, and anger at being kept in the dark. This was my life too. Whatever was circling us, it had already found me. I started paying closer attention, noticing patterns. The same car parked down the street on different days. The same unfamiliar number calling and hanging up. One night, as I stood by my bedroom window, I saw a figure across the road, partially hidden by shadows. He didn't move. He just stood there, staring at the house. I wanted to scream, to wake my mother, but something stopped me. A strange sense that this was exactly what he wanted. To be seen. When I finally told my mother, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath, like she was bracing herself. She said the past doesn't always stay buried, no matter how far you run from it. She admitted that she had hoped he would never find us, that changing cities and names would be enough. That was another shock. Changing names. My mind reeled as I realized how deep this went. How much of our identity had been shaped by fear and escape. I started to question everything. Our home. Our history. Even myself. Despite everything, my mother refused to involve anyone else. She said bringing attention could make things worse. But I could see the toll it was taking on her. The dark circles under her eyes. The way her hands shook when she held a cup of tea. She was carrying this burden alone for too long. As for me, I felt like I was standing on the edge of something dangerous and unavoidable. The mystery of who this man truly was, what he wanted, and why he had come back after all these years haunted me constantly. Every unanswered question made the tension grow tighter, like a rope being pulled from both ends. And deep down, I had a feeling that the knock on our door wasn't a warning. It was an announcement. The days that followed felt like they were moving too fast and too slow at the same time. Every morning I woke up with a tight feeling in my chest, half expecting to hear that doorbell again. Every night, I went to sleep wondering if I would wake up to another scream. The tension hung over our house like a storm cloud that refused to break. My mother barely left my side anymore. She insisted on driving me everywhere, even short distances. She checked her mirrors constantly, her eyes scanning the road behind us. Sometimes, I caught her whispering to herself, like she was trying to build courage with words only she could hear. I could tell she was preparing for something, even if she didn't say it out loud. One afternoon, we found the porch light on when we came home, even though we were sure we had turned it off. My mother stood frozen at the gate, her keys clenched tightly in her hand. She didn't move for a long moment. Then she took a deep breath and told me to stay close to her. Her voice was calm, but I could hear the strain beneath it. Inside the house, everything looked the same. Too normal. But that almost made it worse. The silence felt deliberate, like the house itself was holding its breath. My mother walked from room to room, checking every corner, every window. When she finally sat down, she looked older somehow, like the weight of the past had settled visibly on her shoulders. That night, she told me more than she ever had before. Not details, not names, but feelings. She talked about fear, about the kind that creeps in slowly and convinces you that you deserve it. She talked about how hard it was to leave and how much harder it was to stay gone. I listened quietly, realizing that the strong woman I had always known had survived things I could barely imagine. Still, there were pieces missing. Big ones. And I could feel that whatever was coming would force them into the open. The next sign came 2 days later. A letter slipped under our door while we were home. No knock. No sound. Just the soft scrape of paper against wood. My mother found it first. She stared at it for a long time before picking it up, like touching it might make everything real. There was only one sentence inside. Short and simple. It said, "We need to talk." Her hands shook so badly, she had to sit down. She didn't let me read it at first, but I saw enough. The message wasn't threatening, but it wasn't comforting either. It felt like a trap disguised as an invitation. That evening, the air outside turned heavy and still. The sky darkened earlier than usual, clouds rolling in low and thick. My mother kept checking her phone, then setting it down, then picking it up again. She was waiting for something. Or someone. Around midnight, the power went out again. This time, there was no wind, no storm. Just sudden darkness. My heart started racing. I looked at my mother, and she looked back at me. We both knew what this felt like. Then came the knock. Not the doorbell this time. A slow, steady knock on the door itself. 3 times. Calm. Confident. Like the person on the other side knew exactly what they were doing. My mother stood up slowly, every movement careful. She told me to stay where I was, but my legs felt glued to the floor. I watched her walk toward the door, the dim glow of a candle lighting her face. She looked terrified, but also determined, like she had reached the end of running. The knock came again, louder this time. She reached for the lock, then stopped. Her hand hovered there, trembling. She closed her eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and whispered my name. She told me no matter what happened next, I had to remember that she loved me, that she had always done her best to protect me. That was when fear truly took hold of me. Before she could open the door, a voice spoke from the other side. Low. Familiar. Calm in a way that made my skin crawl. It said her name, slowly, like it had been waiting years to say it out loud again. My mother flinched. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't back away. I stepped closer, unable to stop myself. I wanted to see him. I needed to know if the face I had imagined all this time was real. The door felt like the thinnest barrier in the world, separating everything we knew from everything we had been trying to escape. The voice continued, talking about the past like it was yesterday. About unfinished conversations. About secrets that couldn't stay hidden forever. Every word tightened the knot in my chest. It was clear he knew things. Things about us. About me. My mother finally spoke, her voice shaking but strong. She told him to leave. She said this was over. That he had no place in our lives anymore. There was a pause. A long, heavy pause that made my ears ring. Then he laughed softly. Not loud. Not angry. Just certain. He said some stories don't end just because one person wants them to. He said the truth has a way of coming out, no matter how deep it's buried. I felt like the walls were closing in. Every secret, every unanswered question, every strange moment suddenly felt connected. The mysterious knock, the watching eyes, the changed names, the hidden past. It all led to this door. My mother turned slightly, just enough to look back at me. Her eyes were full of regret and love and fear all at once. In that look, I could tell she was bracing for the worst. The knock came one final time, louder than before. And in that moment, with my heart pounding and my breath caught in my throat, I realized that whatever happened next would change everything. The door handle began to turn. The door handle turned just enough to make a soft clicking sound, and my heart felt like it stopped. My mother didn't open the door, but she didn't pull her hand away either. It was like she was frozen between two worlds, the life she had built with me and the past that refused to stay buried. Then something unexpected happened. My phone vibrated in my pocket. The sound was sharp in the silence, almost painfully loud. My mother flinched and turned toward me, panic flashing across her face. I quickly silenced it, my hands shaking as I checked the screen. It was an unknown number. No name. Just a message. Do not open the door. My breath caught. I looked up at my mother, unsure whether to speak. The knocking stopped outside. The voice didn't return. Instead, there was a long, unsettling quiet, like whoever stood on the other side was listening. I stepped closer to my mother and whispered that I had received a message. Her eyes widened, and she quietly asked from whom. I showed her the screen. She stared at it for several seconds, her face tightening in a way I hadn't seen before. "That's not possible," she murmured. Before I could ask what she meant, her phone buzzed too. She looked down slowly, like she already knew what she would see. Her hands trembled as she read the message. I didn't see the screen, but I saw the fear return, sharper than before. Outside, footsteps moved across the porch. Not leaving, just shifting position. The voice came back, closer now, lower. He said my mother's name again, but this time there was irritation underneath the calm. He said he knew she was there, that hiding behind silence wouldn't work anymore. My mother swallowed hard and finally spoke through the door. She told him he needed to leave, that there were people watching now, that he wasn't as untouchable as he thought. That's when he said something that made my blood run cold. He said he wasn't alone. The air felt heavier instantly. My mind raced, imagining shadows beyond the door, more than one set of eyes fixed on our house. I clutched my phone tightly, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. Another message came through on my phone. Same unknown number. He doesn't know everything. I felt dizzy. Nothing made sense anymore. If the man at the door didn't know everything, then who was sending these messages? And why were they helping us? My mother seemed to come to the same realization. She backed away from the door slowly, pulling me with her. Her voice dropped to a whisper as she told me there were things she had never told anyone. Things even he wasn't supposed to know. The man outside grew impatient. His voice sharpened as he said time was running out, that he had waited long enough, that secrets rot when left in the dark. Suddenly, a car engine started nearby. Headlights swept across the living room through the window, then stopped. The light stayed there, unmoving. My mother's face went pale. She whispered a name under her breath, one I had never heard before. I asked who it was, but she shook her head, her eyes locked on the window. She said everything had just changed. The knocking returned, harder this time, more forceful. The calm was gone. Before my mother could respond, the unknown number called my phone. I hesitated, then answered, my voice barely steady. The person on the other end spoke quickly, urgently. They said I needed to listen carefully, that my mother wasn't just running from one person, but from a choice she made long ago, a choice that involved more than just leaving. They said the man at the door believed one version of the truth, but there was another. The call ended before I could ask anything. My mother stared at me, her eyes searching my face. I told her what the voice said. Her knees nearly gave out, and she sat down heavily on the couch, pressing her hands to her face. I had never seen her look so broken. She admitted then that the past was more complicated than I knew, that there were events she had buried so deeply she almost believed they never happened. She said the man outside thought he was coming back to reclaim something that was taken from him. But what he didn't know was that someone else had been watching all along. The headlights outside flicked off. Footsteps approached the porch again, heavier now, more than one set. The man's voice changed when he spoke next. There was tension in it. Uncertainty. He asked my mother who else was involved. She didn't answer. My phone buzzed one last time. He's not the biggest danger anymore. A sudden loud bang hit the side of the house, making me scream. Not the door, the wall. like someone had slammed something against it. My mother grabbed me, pulling me close, her body shielding mine without hesitation. The man outside shouted now, anger spilling through his words. He accused my mother of lying, of playing games. He demanded she open the door before things got worse. Through the window, I saw movement. Shadows crossing each other. A figure stepping back, another stepping forward. Whatever was happening, it was no longer just about the past catching up. It was about control. My mother whispered that if the door opened tonight, there would be no turning back. That the truth waiting on the other side wasn't just dangerous, it would destroy the version of life we had been living. The knocking stopped abruptly. For a moment, everything was silent. Then a new voice spoke from outside. This one my mother recognized instantly. And the look on her face told me the story had just taken a far darker turn. The new voice outside was calm but firm, cutting through the tension like a blade. My mother whispered the name again, clearer this time, and I finally understood what fear mixed with recognition looked like. She stood up slowly, telling me to stay behind her no matter what. Her voice was steady now, not because she wasn't afraid, but because she had reached the point where fear no longer controlled her. She opened the door. The porch light revealed 3 people. The man from the past stood closest, his face tight with anger and disbelief. Behind him was another figure, older, composed, watching everything with sharp eyes. And off to the side, half in shadow, was someone I didn't expect at all. A woman. She looked tired but alert, like she had been carrying a secret just as heavy as my mother's. The calm voice belonged to her. She spoke my mother's name like an old friend might, gently but with weight behind it. She said this had gone on long enough, that everyone was finally here and the truth didn't need to hide anymore. The man snapped back at her, demanding to know why she was there. She didn't even look at him at first. Her eyes were fixed on my mother. That's when everything spilled out. Years ago, my mother hadn't just run away.
She had exposed something.
Something dangerous. The man at the door wasn't just controlling and cruel. He had been involved in things that hurt people, quietly, carefully, using fear and silence. My mother had found proof and taken it to the one person she trusted, the woman standing on our porch now. They had made a choice together. A risky one. Instead of confronting him directly, they disappeared, setting events in motion that would eventually bring everything to light without putting a target on my mother's back. Or so they thought. The messages, the watching, the timing, none of it was random. The older man stepped forward then. He introduced himself as someone whose job was to make sure unfinished business stayed finished. He wasn't there for my mother. He was there for the man who refused to let go of the past. The anger drained from the man's face, replaced by something close to panic. He realized too late that he hadn't been in control this time. The knocking, the intimidation, the return, it had all been a test. And he had failed it. Voices rose. Accusations flew. The past, so carefully hidden, unraveled in front of my house. I stood frozen, watching my mother finally say everything she had kept locked inside for years. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She spoke clearly, honestly, reclaiming her story piece by piece. When it was over, the night felt strangely quiet. The man was taken away, still shouting, still denying, but his power was gone. The porch felt lighter somehow, like the darkness had lifted with him. The woman gave my mother a long look, one filled with relief and sadness. She said she was sorry it had taken so long. My mother nodded. Some apologies don't need words. They all left soon after, their cars disappearing into the night. The porch light buzzed softly above us, the same light that had started all of this. My mother and I stood there for a long time, neither of us speaking. Then she pulled me into a hug, so tight it took my breath away. She told me it was over, that we were safe, that the past no longer had a hold on us. And for the first time in weeks, I believed her. We went inside, locked the door, and sat together on the couch as dawn slowly crept in through the windows. The house felt like ours again. Solid.
Real.
I asked her if there was anything else she hadn't told me. She hesitated, then shook her head. She said some truths hurt less when they arrive later. I didn't press her. Life didn't magically return to normal after that, but it moved forward.
Slowly. Carefully.
The fear faded into memory, replaced by something stronger. Understanding. I saw my mother differently now, not just as my parent, but as someone who had fought hard to protect a life she believed in. Weeks passed, then months. One evening, as I was cleaning out an old drawer, I found my birth certificate tucked inside an envelope. Something about it made me pause. I studied it more closely than I ever had before. That's when I noticed it. The date was correct. My mother's name was correct. But the last name wasn't. It wasn't the one we had been using all these years. My heart started pounding as I realized what that meant. Slowly, carefully, I walked into the living room where my mother sat reading. I showed her the paper without saying a word. She looked at it, then at me. And for the first time since the night of the knock, I saw fear return to her eyes. She took a deep breath and said, "There's one more thing I need to tell you." Outside, somewhere far away, a door closed. My mother sat very still after she spoke, her fingers tightening around the edge of the paper. The room felt quiet in a different way than before, not heavy with danger, but thick with truth waiting to be spoken. I sat across from her, my heart racing, suddenly aware that this final secret might change how I saw myself forever. She told me to sit down, so I did. Then she began slowly, carefully choosing each word. She explained that when she ran from her past, she didn't just change where we lived. She changed who we were on paper. The last name I had grown up with wasn't false in meaning, she said, but it wasn't the one I was born with. It was a shield, a way to make sure no trail led back to us. I asked her the question that had been building in my chest for weeks. I asked if the man at the door was my father. She shook her head immediately. Firmly. She said no, and I believed her. Then she explained that my biological father had been someone entirely different. A kind man. A quiet man. Someone who had helped her escape when things first started to go wrong. But protecting me meant protecting him too, and he had disappeared from our lives long before I could remember him.
She told me he was gone now.
Not taken. Not punished. Just gone. Life had moved on for him, the same way it eventually did for us. She said the man who came back wasn't chasing love or family. He was chasing control. And when he realized he couldn't reach her through fear anymore, he tried to reach her through me. That truth hurt in a strange way, but it also made things clearer. The watching, the knocking, the pressure. It was never about reclaiming the past. It was about refusing to lose power over it. I asked her why the woman on the porch had helped us. My mother smiled faintly and said some people choose to stand up once, and that choice defines them forever. The woman had been one of the few who believed her without proof, who understood that silence can be just as dangerous as lies. She had been watching from a distance all these years, making sure the past stayed where it belonged. As for the messages, they were part of that protection. Quiet warnings. Small nudges to keep us safe, without pulling us back into the spotlight. The night everything came to a head, the plan finally reached its end. The man had exposed himself by returning, and that was all the proof needed. I leaned back, letting it all sink in. For the first time since the knock on the door, my chest felt lighter. Not because nothing bad had happened, but because everything finally made sense. Over the next few weeks, life slowly settled into something close to normal. The locks stayed, but the fear behind them faded. My mother slept through the night again. The house stopped feeling like it was holding its breath. We talked more openly than we ever had before about the past, about mistakes, about strength. I learned that protecting someone doesn't always look heroic in the moment. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like leaving. Sometimes it looks like living under a different name, so a child can grow up without fear. The last name on my papers eventually changed back, quietly, legally, without drama. It didn't feel like losing an identity. It felt like uncovering one. My mother told me that names matter, but choices matter more. And the choice she made was always me. One evening, months later, we stood on the porch together as the sun went down. The same porch where fear had once lived. The light flickered on automatically, steady and calm. No shadows. No knocking. Just quiet. I realized then that the past doesn't always come back to destroy you. Sometimes it comes back to test whether it still has power. And sometimes, facing it is the only way to truly move forward. That night changed my mother. It changed me too. But it didn't break us. It reminded us that survival isn't just about escaping danger. It's about choosing truth when the time is right. The doorbell hasn't rung late at night since then. But if it ever does, I know one thing for sure. We won't be afraid to open the door together.